completely okay to show anger, to experience anger and show it. But it is not okay to become the anger. They feel so dense and so heavy that we don't know how to deal with them because the first reaction is, it feels so bad, I don't want to feel it. In Andean cosmology, just like in Hindu and Buddhist, we all have that Christ potential. The way that he used to heal is he could actually see the density in people. I want to mention this because it's of utmost importance that we understand that when dealing with Hucha,
Hello, Andres. Again, I'm so excited to have you on Mindful Mutiny. And today I wanted to talk about another one of your incredible offerings, and it's the Andean energy healing. And can you explain what Andean energy healing is?
sure. First and foremost, again, thank you for having me again here. Andean energy healing is a pretty old practice, is an ancestral practice, what we call ancestral practice. And it's a practice that comes from the Andes Mountains. It is over 5,000 years old, and it's similar to Reiki in that we are moving energy with a pretty um, intentional and purposeful functionality. The practice in itself, Andean healing arts, is in the way that we teach this at Pachamama, has four main practices. The first one is called Samin Chakwi. The second one is called Saiwa Chakwi. The third one is called Huchamikwi. And the last one is called Hampemunai. And within these four practices, it is the means for a person to evolve their way of relating to energy. Andean healing arts is the process in which we actually allow our energy to organically and naturally become more aligned to our essence, right? Because, you understand that sometimes people, like, for example, you and me, when we were children, we might have gone through maybe a little bit of rejection, sometimes maybe a little bit of abandonment feelings or humiliation with bullying, etc. We all had a little bit of something, right? And so our energy sometimes becomes dense and becomes a little bit heavy. And what this practice is the pragmatic use of all of that energy to evolve our relationship with energy itself. And so that our energy, our consciousness, and our awareness becomes more in alignment with what is essential, not what is dense and what is misinterpretation, with heaviness, with suffering, with chaos, not density, but in a more subtle, more refined type of flow, which is light, right? It is an alignment to light. And so the practice in itself, some of our teachers who are, we truly admire and consider, our guides in this lifetime, people that have lived, hundreds of years ago, like Don Manuel Quispe, Don Benito Corihuaman, some of these great teachers, which, just to give you an idea of why we consider them so special, consider them to be so special, is because they did things in the cosmology. There's accounts of every single one of these teachers to do similar things to what Joshua did when he was alive 2,000 years ago. This is eradicating, epidemics and things like this, right? Healing and whatnot, you name it. And so all of them coincided that the first one of those four practices, Samin Chakwi, that is enough to take us all the way up in consciousness to help us ascend to the fifth level of consciousness. And obviously, everybody's starting at the level 0. And so we go from 0 to 1, we get to the Runa to Hampek, and we start to heal with nature, etc., etc. So it is just to put it into perspective of how powerful this practice is, it is the means to eradicate heaviness from our life, right? Obviously, it is teaching our nervous system, teaching really all of our systems, right? Literally your circulatory system, your respiratory system, your endocrine system, every system to relax and let energy just flow rather than attaching to, little pains and aches and discomforts, etc., likes and don't likes. And so all of that is released, and then we enter into a space of flow, relaxation, peace, ease, etc. So it's a really beautiful way of practicing what we think spirituality is. It's is the way of making all of our ideas of spirituality, make them practical and in an embodied way, in a way that I can actually experience it. So it's a high value practice. Yeah.
So I'm in one of your courses right now that we'll talk about a little bit later. And then what I really enjoy about it is it's very practical, it's very step by step, it's very structured. And so what it feels like this particular course is about, it's about teaching line by line the ability to deal with not only your own energy, but energies that are kind of around. And so
Yes.
you talk about who it is that would be the person that you're looking for to be a part of a program like this,
Oh
and
wow.
what they do, who they
Yeah.
are, and what they can do with this.
Yeah. I mean, this is the greatest of questions because
And
it
do it in
doesn't get
90
any
seconds.
it it doesn't get any more general than this. It's when you when you think about who could use this is think about it like this: if you are affected emotionally or mentally in any way, like absolutely everybody is, this is a good practice for it. And you spoke about something very special, which is how to deal not just with my energy and let my own energy flow, but also how to deal with the energies around me, right? And so there's this process that is called huchamikui, where we learn how to relate to the hucha of our environments and how to learn to transmute it and give it to Mother Earth.
Kucha, the shadow.
Huchamikui. Yes, hucha is density. Anything
Yes.
that is dense energy, right? So any dense energy in the world, so you just gotta go outside, right? You gotta walk outside of your home, and then any type of hucha that you see might be superficial jealousy. It might be like frivolity, or it doesn't matter, right? It could be maybe some aggression, road rage, and things like this. It doesn't matter what type of density it is. It's density. We don't qualify energy except for is it flowing or is it not flowing, right? If it's not flowing, we know it's hucha. If it's flowing, beautiful. It's sami, right? It's energy that is in a state of flow. So anything that is hucha, we learn how to relate to it, to be able to transmute it. And the principle in the Andes is hucha de ti me empodero, which means hucha, I empower myself from you. But it is not like I am becoming like this powerful monster of density. It's more like I understand that there is some density, whether it is in myself or outside, mostly outside with this practice, and that I am able to recognize it, feel it, and then allow myself to have a process with that to be able to transmute it, to honor it, to honor that density. And then once I understand it, once I can have a communication, an intimate relationship with that level of density, there's a compassion, there's a love that always emanates because you love your brothers and sisters. This is when we start to step into our nature. And so we allow this energy to come in, we see it for what it is. There's a deep sense of compassion and love that transmutes it. And then we give it to Mother Earth. We let it go. And so we become a channel for whatever source of hucha, of density in the world. Now, it's really important that we do this. I want to mention this because it's of utmost importance that we understand that when dealing with hucha, it needs to be there's parameters, there's a protocol of when and why, right? When, why, and what for actually. And so once I start to understand the when, the why, and the what for, then I can take that hucha. If I don't understand it, then I shouldn't be able to take responsibility for anybody else's, right? I'm responsible for myself. And so we learn to discern all of these things in the practice, in this initiation course. Now, this is a course that it is not just a spiritual practice course, is an actual initiation right? Into learning how to move energy in such a way which creates a bond in between every participant and the lineage, every participant and the spirituality of the Andes, to per se. So learning to move dense energy, it's a function of a priest or priestess where we begin that ministry of harmonizing the energy in our environments. And then we become an energy ecologists, environmental ecologists. And when it comes to energy, you can not only allow your densities, and this is any type of hucha that you might feel. You might feel a little bit of sorrow, you might feel sadness, you might feel anger sometimes, and then the anger can become rage, and then the rage can evolve into, heavier things. We can allow those to exist to give us a lesson to understand what the purpose is, and then let it go. Never to become embodied of it. The problem is that when we don't deal with these energies, Jeremy, is that they linger. And when they linger, they take a shape and a form of their own. And then they're here in our electromagnetic field, feeding and feeding and feeding more of that same energy. And it's like carrying a virus. A lot of the times it's carrying a virus of different frequencies that are dense. And they are, they're the food of what the Bible called the beast, which is the unattended ego, right? But once you tend to the ego well and you take care of it, then the beast becomes, like a very loyal and very intuitive friendship, that you with any energy that it is your persona, your personality, man. So anyways, that's a little bit that was a little bit of information. I understand there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it. Most of this understanding about what the practice is comes from within the practice, right? Obviously, we're always there. The teachers are there. The lineage is there to support and to put things into perspective, right? But one of the things that we like the most is how every person has a very organic, natural awakening within the practice so that they can start to understand what is truly spirituality for them. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense, and I wanna break this down into something that I think is a very tangible example. I'm a therapist and a coach, and I work a lot with people who have ADHD, and I've got ADHD, and a lot with people you're neurodivergent when you have this. Now, with ADHD, there's a lot of issues with rage. And I'll give an example. The Pop-Tart in the toaster gets burned. The ADHD person pulls the toaster out of the wall and throws it across the room and then goes, "Why did I throw the toaster? That was a stupid
Or
thing
the
to do."
computer or anything, right? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And what I find in people who have ADHD is that they go, I just got so angry at the toaster." And they weren't monitoring their level of anger or anxiety or overwhelm in the several hours
Mhm.
before that happened.
Okay.
Maybe there was an email that got sent to them at work and
Mhm.
their boss got
Right.
CC'd in it and
Mhm.
they didn't like how that went, or they
Yep.
said something at a party the day
Yeah.
before and they're kind of embarrassed about it and they're
Yep.
redoing that over there and they're not recognizing how their energy is starting to go like
Yeah.
this. And it all culminates when you burn the Pop-Tart and you throw the
Yeah.
toaster.
Yeah.
And so this energy that led up to the Pop-Tart, that is the shadow energy that comes from, in the ADHD person,
Yeah.
years of trauma,
Yes.
years of rejection, years of sadness, years
Yeah.
of not feeling enough, years of not feeling like you measure up to the people around you, and always feeling like you're just an odd person out. And monitoring and understanding your own energy, not just
Mhm.
simply from a
Mhm.
spiritual sense, but from a psychological sense, is something that's
Mhm.
absolutely
Mhm.
important so that you know that you're overwhelmed and you're starting to get upset so that you can do a mindfulness practice and less
Mhm.
of a toaster throwing
Mhm.
practice. And
Mhm.
that's something where these kinds of practices are really, they're very practical, because it
Yes.
sometimes comes off that these kinds of things are only for the kinds of people who wear a lot of linen and beads. And it's not. It's for people who are dealing with anxiety, depression, ADHD, practical issues, and also spiritual seekers. And so there's something that is so very tangible about this kind of practice. It's spiritual in nature. It's also psychological in nature.
ADHD is a spiritual condition, it's
Thank
a
you.
condition, yes. And you're completely right. Understanding this from a conceptual and even psychological standpoint and point of view, it is just as important as that's the consciousness. That's the consciousness part of it, and the awareness part of it is understanding at a physical level, biologically, what is my body feeling? How does anger is contained? How does anger is allowed to express itself without embodying my mind, without allowing the anger to become me, right? There's some gurus that say it is completely okay to show anger, to experience anger and show it, but it is not okay to become the anger, right? So, okay or not okay, this is not a good or bad thing. We're not getting into duality with this understanding. Is just what is the most beneficial course of action for you, for me, for anyone listening when it comes to negative emotion. It is not repression. We know this. They have a purpose and they need to exist, right? But a lot of the times they feel so dense and so heavy that we don't know how to deal with it because the first reaction is it feels so bad. I don't want to feel it, right? I want to push it away as far as I can. I push away my depression. How? Let me pop another, Zoloft, another pill, whatever, right? And so I take the pill so that I don't have to feel them. But it is right there. It signals, is your own system telling you, wake up, do something about your own misinterpretations, your own whatever, right? Start to take responsibility. There's many different kinds of messages that these impulses give you. And learning how to manage this, it is emotional management, it's an emotional intelligence. It comes to a point of I become a master of every single impulse that courses through. Doesn't mean that you're not going to get upset, that you're not going to get angry. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get disappointed or anxious anymore. It just means that whenever you do, you're going to be so tapped into your own self and so connected that you can manage that, and that you can set the boundaries and protect yourself and protect and make sure that things are balanced both for you and for, the circumstances around you. And so this is the purpose, is to increase our awareness with the ultimate goal and objective of becoming more intelligent emotionally speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got one last question for you. You mentioned Yeshua. We call him
Yes.
Jesus. And
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about the Christian person who is watching this and going, Andean energy healing.
Mhm.
I don't know what that is. Am I welcome to be a part of this? Am I dealing with things that are against my religion? Can you talk about
No,
that?
yeah, definitely. In the Andes, and this might have been because Peru got there was the whole conquest, colonization, and it was Pizarro. It was the general, like I think it was Hernan Cortez was in Mexico, and the general down south in Peru was Pizarro, and they brought Christianity, right? But it was Catholicism. It was a Catholic church that got there, and Jeshua is well known. When the Spanish came, they indoctrinated really, really deeply, and so to be able to preserve the teachings, what the Peruvian priests did, it was that they adopted Jeshua. And so they understood, they're like, okay, what is this guy? What is this so-called Jesus? What are some of his attributes? Why are you putting him in a pedestal, right? And then they started to tell, well, he walks on water. Well, he makes the blind. He heals the blind and he makes them see. He can even lift up, revive, right? He can bring people back from the dead. And then he ascended and he's still alive. And it's like, and they're like, well, this is a kura hakuyek, They're basically is like, yeah, this is not just one, but that's the problem, right? Christianity is like the only son of God, and he was sent, and the whole story, right? But in Andean cosmology, just like in Hindu and Buddhist, we all have that Christ potential. And it's just the potential, right? People don't really want to walk those steps towards developing that potential, but everybody's essence is infused with this, whether they want it or not.
Mm.
And so in the end is they understand that Christ consciousness is the same as the Iyatiksi Wiracocha consciousness. It's exactly the same. It is in when you understand it from Christ consciousness teachings, the Christ is the emanation of the perfect balance of the feminine and the masculine. Father and mother God, father, mother, life, right? Universal consciousness is composed of these two energies. Now, if this, this is a little bit more in depth, but you can actually speak to some high level priests that teach cosmology, Catholic priests, and they can tell you about this, right? In your normal, sermon and your normal, Sunday mass type of thing, you'll hear from the scriptures and things like that, and you might not hear the principles of father, mother, life, but there's that they call it the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, right? That the Trinity in reality was something else. But without getting too far away from your question, the point is that it is understood really clearly that the true Christ message, the true Christ energy, it is the same as the Kurahakuyek. And not to trivialize it by any means, in Christianity, when you think about Yeshua, when you think about Jesus, the way that he used to heal is he could actually see the density in people. And he was he was a magician, he was a shaman. And so he was so in depth, tapped into energy in general, and such a master of this third dimension reality that he could command energy, right? So if just his speech, it was so filled with vibration that was in alignment with the divine, that if he saw that there was a sick person, is like, that's not the state of that the divine created you in. Come back to the normal state that you were created in. And he would command, decaying cells of leprosy or whatever it was, just to come back to its natural radiance, to its natural state. And so this was the healing. So the management of energy is the principle. Obviously, when we're talking about the fifth level of consciousness, which is what Joshua was, we understand that it is a mastery of these basic practices that we're doing. Samin Chakwi is bringing energy from Father Cosmos, from the Sun, down to Pachamama, from Pachatata to Pachamama. And so it is the use of those two polarities, the use of positive and negative, and sometimes creating a balance in between the two to create very powerful portals of healing, very powerful, they call them burbujas. It's like a bubble where the healing can actually take place. It's spheres of consciousness that it is infused with healing, infused with life. And there's a pretty in-depth understanding that the practices in itself, Samin Chakri, Saiwa Chakri, Huchamiki, Hampemunai, they are the means for us to evolve to be experiencing that level of mastery eventually. So when it comes to someone that it is really truly following the Christ message, even if it's through the Christian side or Catholic side, it is a really powerful opportunity to start practicing what the teacher used to practice, what Jeshua used to practice, which is his management. And we consider him, and at all lengths, he's a big part of everything that we do. Jeshua is one of the main teachers that we follow here.
Andres, thank you so much for coming in and talking about your course on Andean energy healing. There's going to be a link in the description of this episode about this course, and you can go and check it out. And I highly recommend that you enroll in this because it's an absolutely amazing thing. All of these courses that Pachamama Sacred Paths offer are life-changing, life-altering, and perspective-changing. So, Andres, thank you so much for being on Mindful Mutiny today.
Thank you, brother. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the Mindful Mutiny podcast. And remember that in a lifetime, there are more decisions than anybody can count. Living the highest form of yourself is the most incredible thing that you can do. Make incredible, positive, risky, and bold decisions to be the highest version of you. Now go be something great.